Hey, welcome back to Growing in God Confidence. I'm Pastor Josh, and this is week 4 in our study. Looking back, we've walked through Acts chapter 22, 23, and 24, and we've discussed how we grow in confidence in God as we reflect on our own story of what God has done in our lives, as we learn and stand on the promises of God for us, and how we learn of God's character and His nature as we read His Word. This week, as we dive into Acts 25, we're going to be looking at the life of Paul. We're going to discover another aspect of growing in God confidence. The story unfolds with Paul facing, again, false accusations and standing trial before Governor Festus. For 2 years now, Paul has been imprisoned unjustly, holding on to the promise that Jesus gave him that he would testify in Rome. Despite the prolonged wait and the persistent efforts of his accusers, Paul's faith remained unshaken. This scenario isn't unfamiliar for us as we look through biblical history, from Joseph to Moses, from Elijah to Daniel, ultimately with Jesus himself. God's people have often faced false accusations and persecution. It's a pattern that continues to this day, as Jesus himself forewarned in Matthew 5:11 and 12. Jesus said, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." These words serve as both a warning and an encouragement. They remind us that facing opposition for our faith is not just possible, it's expected. Yet, they also assure us of the blessings that await those who stand firm. Paul's response to his accusers is noteworthy. When given the opportunity to defend himself, he said, "Neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offense." His confidence in his innocence was so complete that he even declared, "If then I am a wrongdoer and I've committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death." This level of assurance that Paul had didn't stem from arrogance, but it came from a deep-seated confidence in God and God's promise. Paul knew that his life was in God's hands, and that gave him the courage to face whatever came his way. As the chapter continues, we see Paul exercising wisdom alongside his faith. When offered the chance to be tried in Jerusalem, Paul appeals to Caesar instead. This isn't just a legal maneuver. It was a strategic move that aligned with God's earlier promise that he would testify in Rome. This balance of faith and practical wisdom offers an important lesson for us. God confidence doesn't mean we abandon common sense or fail to use resources available to us. Rather, it means that we trust in God while also doing our part, whether it's seeking medical help while also praying for healing, or exercising our rights as citizens while also trusting in God's sovereignty. We're called to be a balanced and a faith-driven people as we approach life. The point I want to highlight overall, however, is this: Paul's persistence throughout the whole ordeal. For 2 years, he had been imprisoned on false charges. Yet his commitment to Christ and his desire to preach the gospel remained undiminished. This steadfastness in the face of prolonged adversity is what truly exemplifies growing in God confidence. In fact, Isaiah 40:31 says it beautifully. "But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Contrary to our instant gratification culture, waiting on the Lord doesn't diminish our confidence in Him, it strengthens it. Paul himself wrote about this process in his letter to the Romans. He says, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Romans 5, 3 through 5. This passage outlines the transformative journey from suffering to hope. Perseverance, as the passage says, endurance, is the critical link in this chain. It's through persevering that we develop character. And it's that tested character that gives birth to hope that doesn't disappoint. So how do we apply this to our lives? Growing in God confidence means standing firm in our faith even when challenges persist. It means continuing to trust when prayers seem unanswered, when loved ones remain far from God, when circumstances refuse to change. By persevering through the difficult situations, we demonstrate our trust in God's power, in His plan, and in His timing. Think of it like weightlifting. It's time under tension. The duration our muscles are strained under as we exercise under a weight is what builds our strength and allows us to lift heavier weights over time. Similarly, it's time we spend under the tension of trials builds our spiritual muscles, enabling us to bear greater burdens and stand stronger in our faith. At some point in our journey of faith, we have to transition from merely acquiring more confidence in God to actually standing in the confidence of God. It's like watching countless how-to videos. Eventually, you have to start building the thing that you've been researching. We have to put our faith into practice. When trials come, when loved ones fall ill, when relationships struggle, when our children are doing harmful things and making poor decisions, it's these moments when we put our confidence in God into practice. We have to move from being hearers of the word to actual doers of the word. What this looks like will be unique to each individual's circumstance, but the principle remains the same. We must live out what we profess to believe. It's in the lived out faith that our confidence in God grows even more. As we reflect on Paul's journey and our own walks of faith, let's be encouraged to persevere. Let's view our trials not as stumbling blocks, but as stepping stones to greater confidence in God. Let's be like Paul, standing firm in our convictions, exercising wisdom in our actions, and persisting in our faith, knowing that as we do, our strength will be renewed and our character refined, and our hope in God unshakable. In the end, growing in God confidence is not about mustering up your own strength. It's about persistently trusting in God's unfailing love and power, even when, especially when, the path ahead seems uncertain. As we persevere, may we find ourselves mounting up with wings like eagles, running and not growing weary, walking and not fainting, even as we grow in our confidence in God, the God who holds all things in His hands. God bless you.